Hello everyone, you're watching End Time Counterpoint. My name is Dan. Thanks for tuning in today. Today I want to talk about some red flags that are absolutely visible and that should be easily recognizable. You have to look no further than my previous video in the comment section. And I'm going to identify about 5 red flags that I saw right away that let me know that somebody's living in a fantasy land. And I'll show you what the red flags are. They're very easy to see them once you allow me to point them out to you. So let's begin with red flag number 1. What is it? Well, it's a very narcissistic approach. And the first statement that somebody says in the comment section on my last video is, EC, I want to help you in your ministry. Now, you might say, well, what's the problem with that? Well, here's the problem. A narcissist is always identifiable because he thinks that everyone around him is stupid. So right off the bat, this person did not recognize anything I said, even the way I said it, just blew right past all of that and says, here's a guy who needs my help, and he says, I'm going to help you in your ministry. All right? Didn't see the white hair on my head. Didn't watch any of my previous videos where I said I've been reading the Bible for over 50 years and, I'm trying to help everybody, stop the madness and get back to the simpler things of Christ, and that's what Paul encouraged us to do. But this guy sees that as a weakness, and so he says, I'm going to help you in your ministry. See the narcissism? It's just dripping from that statement. That's the way the narcissist thinks. And in addition, a narcissist will never recognize anything anybody does. Why? Because to recognize somebody else's accomplishment takes away from the narcissist feeling that only he is smart enough to figure those things out. All right. Red flag number 2 is this. It's arbitrary date setting. All right. So this guy says that this prophecy in Daniel chapter 7 is happening in 2025. Right? That's arbitrary. I mean, do you know how many people have tried to set dates for things like this and other things in general? You could go back to the 1800s and study William Miller. He was a guy that had all this Bible prophecy figured out. He had done all the mathematical calculations. And he went all across this country. I think he even had a publicist with him. And he said that Christ was going to return in such and such year. And then when it didn't happen, he realized that he made a mistake. I think it was accounting for the year 0 or something like that. So he recalculated everything and then said that Jesus Christ is returning this next year. And so again, he went all across the country making this big deal about Christ's return, and a lot of people sold all their goods and possessions and followed him, and it just didn't happen, even though he said he had it all figured out. And everybody that tries to set a date for something fails miserably, but it never stops the next person from trying, and I don't understand that. There's a statement about learning from history, and if you don't, you're doomed to repeat it. And that's what these false prophets keep doing. They keep setting dates. And it's all arbitrary. And they just wrestle with it and grapple with it, as Paul said many people do. And they just shoehorn Bible prophecy into whatever day and hour they're living in this case, the year 2025. And this arbitrary date setting should be a very big red flag for you. And I saw it right off. Right? This times, and half a time in the book of Daniel is happening in the year 2025. That's totally arbitrary, and that's a big red flag. Red flag number 3 is this obsession over Donald Trump. I mean, to me, that's a big red flag. And the mainstream media has been doing this for a long, long time now, many years. And I guess people today just figure that they have to keep up or, people won't pay attention to them. But this continual obsession over Donald Trump and reverse engineering him into Bible prophecy, to me, it's really kind of sick. And it is an obsession. And these guys do this all the time. And so the commenter says that Trump is the little horn of Daniel's prophecy. It's like, well, that's totally arbitrary too. But it's also quite delusional. And it's just in keeping with this fascination and obsession with reverse engineering Trump into Bible prophecy. And they keep doing it. And you can go to the YouTube channels of Perry Stone and Jonathan Cahn, for example, and you'll see that time and time and time again. Just go back in the last few months and you'll see that when the news is kind of slow, they resort to reverse engineering Trump into Bible prophecy because they have this obsession over him. I don't know what it is. But that, to me, that's a red flag. this continual obsession over someone and this fascination that just never ends. And I guess they are trying to remain relevant and important in the world of Bible prophecy, so they just, once a week or so, just put Donald Trump into some obscure Old Testament prophecy, which itself is a red flag. Red flag number 4, to me, is a big one. And a lot of people have presumed to do this over the years, to know this, and pretend that we can know God's prophetic timetable. And my answer to that is, no, you can't. You're delusional if you think you can. Jesus said to his very own followers, the ones that he handpicked to carry on his work, by the way, he said it's not for you to know the times or the seasons that God the Father has put in his own power. Now, apparently, some of these guys think that while God the Father's back was turned and while Jesus Christ was distracted doing something else, maybe finding actually intelligent beings on other planets, maybe, I don't know. But they think that while God the Father's back was turned, they went up there and stole something out of his library, and now they're preaching all this on social media that we can know exactly what's on God's prophetic timetable. It's like, no, you can't. It's not for you to know. Why? Why did Jesus say that it's not for you to know these things? Because he knew that men would just merchandise that knowledge to death. And isn't that what all the false prophets are doing today? They're taking all this so-called knowledge they have of God's prophetic timetable and they're merchandising it to death. That's exactly what they're doing. So this is why Jesus said it's not for you to know. It's just like the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. People just can't keep their hands off of it. But this is the reason why Jesus said it's not for you to know what God the Father has in store. Because if you did, you would merchandise it to death just to gain a following. And that's exactly what these false prophets are doing. So when somebody tells you that, oh, we can know God's prophetic timetable, red flag. Red flag right off the bat, right? That's a big one. And like I said, people that think they can are just living in a delusion. And I don't know whether to feel sorry for them or get angry with them, but they need help. But the fact is, you can't know what's on God's prophetic timetable because only he knows when it will be time to once again send his son to this earth. So red flag number 4 is people who presume to know God's timetable. They don't. All right, now there's a 5th red flag that I want to show you from these comments that will kind of reiterate what I said at the beginning with red flag number 1. Now you think, what's so bad about somebody wanting to help you? Well, like I said, narcissism is often wrapped in kindness. And so red flag number 5 is the conclusion. I'm going to give you this gift. Since you're too stupid to figure everything out, let me help you. And they take this attitude that they've got all this knowledge and all this revelation and all these things that the average person just doesn't have. And so they think they need to help people like me who are just trying to cut out the nonsense and get back to the simplicity that is in Christ that Paul talked about. They see that as a weakness. They see simplicity as a weakness. And really what they're trying to do is they're just trying to gain followers, right? That's what it's all about. Somebody in the book of Acts talked about that regarding the disciples and other people who had come before them. He said all they did was just make all these false prophecies to gain a following. And they did for a short while, and then it all just fizzles out. But in conclusion, right, it's sort of like the beginning. I'm going to help you in your ministry, and he concluded by saying, this is this great gift I'm going to give you. And I'm looking at what he's trying to say, and I think, I don't want this gift. It's one of the biggest cock and bull stories I think I've ever heard, that Ezra and Nehemiah were prophesying about U.S. presidents. I don't think that's what was going on in Ezra and Nehemiah. They only had one goal, and that was to get Israel back in compliance with the Old Covenant, which was in force at that time. So folks, I hope that you've listened and just see how easy it is to identify these things because they are out there. All you have to do is just listen, watch and listen. You can learn a lot just by listening. And by seeing, the red flags are out there, and the discerning Christian really should be able to see them. All right, folks, my name is Dan. I want to thank you for tuning in today to End Time Counterpoint. And if you've enjoyed this discussion, give it a thumbs up. Better yet, subscribe to this channel. I really need your help in building up my subscriber base. We're here to keep things simple, right? Now, I do have a book available. It's called Blinded by the Rapture, and in my book I really try to keep things simple and wade through all the nonsense you hear and just show you how easy it is to understand the Bible. You can find it at Apple Books or Barnes & Noble. Just do a search, you'll find it. It's very easy to find, and I encourage you to get it. It will help you in your study. So once again, my name is Dan. I want to thank you for your kind attention today. I will see you in the next video.